It's good 9 inches, and I'd say half of it is good ice. The other half is this sort of slush ice, iffy ice. The tension in those twigs should hold that, so I can put it over the fire. Well, there she is, in all her splendor and glory. Hey, it's Greg here with Outdoors on the Cheap, and I'm on my way back into the woods to find that canoe I mentioned in my last video, the broken canoe that I want to drag home and rescue. When on my way, I thought I'd check one of the spots where I'm used to seeing a lot of rabbit signs and where I've snared a lot of rabbits over the years. So there's a trail here, goes down this way, and it goes underneath this tree here, and this is always a good place to snag them up. I noticed something. One rabbit pellet, right? Poop. Not a lot. Right now, I've been talking to other guys in this area, experienced hunters, and they've had a really bad year. So I'm inclined to think it is, you know, sort of hopefully the bottom of the crash of the population, and it'll be, you know, onwards and upwards from that point onwards. Anyway, that's a good sign, right? That there's still, it's like they're still around. There's just so few that it's almost impossible to snare them, right? Not impossible. If I worked really hard at them, I could pull some rabbits out of this forest. But I just don't see the point in spending hours and hours and hours and hours checking a snare line, only getting a couple. I'd rather, you know, wait a year and see what things are like next year. I mean, you can just tell. I can't even see any sign of tracks here, right? There's just so little volume. Normally, it's this here spot, it's really obvious that they've been through. This is a really heavily used spot, and now there's nothing, right? Anyway, some sign, right? But that's not what I'm out here for today. I got all this gear. I got snowshoes for breaking new trail. I'm walking on the sort of broken trail right now. Snowshoes. I got a nice auger for checking the ice on the lake. Hopefully I can cut across the lake and make a shortcut out of things, right? And I got this nice little lunch all set up to do a little fire and lunch type deal as well. So we'll see in a little bit when I'm closer to my destination. All right, so we're back at the lake. It's been a week since I was out here, and it looks like it might be frozen, might not be frozen. It looks kind of iffy. It was like -7 degrees Celsius last night, and for the last 2 weeks we've had below zero, sometimes in the teens, sometimes not in the teens, temperatures at night. So I have a reasonable expectation that this lake is frozen and safe. I've noticed on some lakes where people are allowed to ice fish, they've been on the lakes ice fishing, although people who ice fish tend to be, you know, comfortable with a degree of risk and usually don't do it alone. I'm alone out here, so you know, it's a risky proposition. Now on my backpack here, I got an ice auger, and I got snowshoes, which spreads out your weight. So I'm going to put on the snowshoes. I'm going to go out to the lake. I'll show you the lake in a second here, and drill a hole and see what we're working with here. So come along. Here's what I'm looking at. What appears to be a frozen lake. But the question is, how, you know, what is the integrity of the ice? Is it good ice? Is it bad ice? That sort of thing. You know, and with these sorts of things, you always trust your instincts. You know, if I'm walking on this and this doesn't feel right, that's why I've got the ice auger. I can check it. And some people might think I'm being overly cautious, but when you're alone, you need to be overly cautious because you've got no plan B. So let's go check this ice. Thought I'd just share with you the cleverness of the old pack frame. I did a video on how I made this. I didn't do a video of making it, I just explained how I made it, but yeah, just the versatility of the pack frame. You can use it for so many things. It's arguable that it doesn't carry as well as an internal frame. I'm pretty sure the internal frame's better carry, but I mean, especially for just day trips like I'm doing today, this is just so much more versatile and practical and adaptable than an internal frame, right? It's just designed to have things strapped to it. I can put anything on this. All right, so I'm working with a improvised chest cam here because I didn't bring a tripod or anything. So we'll just see what we got here. The ice does seem a bit slushy, I guess, but we'll see. so looking at it, it looks like we got 3 or 4 inches of good ice and about, I mean, it's it's good 9 inches, and I'd say half of it is good ice, and the other half is ice. The other half is this sort of slush ice, iffy ice. I think it's all right. I mean, I'm not an expert on these things, so don't, you know, this is not a public safety video. This is me telling you what I'm comfortable with. All right, so I think this is okay. Also, this lake, almost all of this lake is like 4 feet deep. There's a couple spots that are deeper at the very end, but having canoed the whole thing multiple times, it's not a deep lake. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, you can drown, anything can go wrong. You can fall in the water, hit your head, all kinds of things can go wrong. I'm going to stay close to the side. I'll have the auger, I'll have a stick, I'll have these really big snowshoes. These are enormous snowshoes, right? I bought these for my weight, so they really spread your weight out, you know. And I got a stick. You know, if I felt like something was iffy, I could just go down on the stick and spread my weight out, right? And I'll bring this ice auger and check the ice periodically as I go. But I'm pretty confident we can make it across this lake, no problem today. It's just been so cold. You know, there's a river that comes in over there, so I'll stay away from that. And when I get towards the other end, there's a place where the river goes out, so I won't get too far into that. Or I'll go off to the side before that stage of the river's reached, or the stage of the lake is reached. I think we'll be okay. So let's go find that canoe. Yeah, so I'm at a spot here. I've just gone through like a narrowing point where arguably there's a degree of current going through this narrow part of the lake, and just discovered this natural hole. Either it's a natural hole or the ice here is really thin. So I'm going to drill a hole here just to confirm that my hypothesis that it's just natural. I can actually see some sort of tracks going, I don't know if you can see that, but tracks going off on the ice there, like something with some degree of size crossed here, perhaps. Anyway, I'm going to drill a hole and check the ice here, so we'll see in a second. All right, so I made that hole. There's that natural hole. Here's the hole I just made. To jam my hand in there, and it was as wide as my hand span, so it's like 9 inches, and I'd say at least half of it is good ice. So I think I'm just worrying about nothing here. I feel confident to just blow across the lake and get to the other side and find that canoe. So we'll catch up with you there. You know, I'm just going to continue on like this. I still think it's prudent to check the ice whenever you think it might be iffy, because I mean, you can be on a lake and you can be going along just fine over thick ice, and there's an area where there's just some natural current or whatever, some natural phenomenon, and a whole stretch of the lake is really thin. And I've experienced that personally, and it's the most unnerving thing to think you're on 6-inch ice and all of a sudden you're on 2-inch ice. All right, well, I'm at the other end of the lake. You can see my path there, so I know the way back. Right, I know a safe way back because I came this way. Just check the ice every so often to make sure it was consistently safe, or safe enough. This is the end of the lake. Just around the corner here, the lake turns into a river and the water's open. I'm going to go in here and make a fire and have lunch because I'm getting pretty darn hungry. It's getting close to 1 o'clock, or it might even be past 1 o'clock, so it's time to eat. I'm going to have lunch, and then I'm going to see if I can locate that canoe. Okay, I found what I think is an ideal place to set up for lunch. Got a little place to sit. The wind's kind of going on an angle this way, so I'll put the fire over there so it'll sort of be at my back but on an angle. Hopefully this smoke won't blow into my face, and we'll get a little fire set up. So see you in a few minutes here. All right, so I've gathered up some stuff for making fire, all within about a 15-minute radius of where I'm sitting right here. And I didn't need a baton, anything. I didn't need a saw. I just needed my hands. All right, so I got some heavier stuff, right? I made a little floor. Of course, you can get stuff going on snow, but fires burn better if they're on stuff that doesn't melt and turn into water, of course, right? So we'll just get some of this going. This stuff is dry as hell. These are just dead standing trees. I just pried off some bark from the side of them, and some branches from some standing spruce trees, right? And of course my lunch is flammable, because I got some bread here that I wrapped in newspaper and wax paper. A little bit worked over, but it'll be fine for just going to sop up some beans. Right, so I'll just put these aside. Oops, I lost a bit of butter there. Not good. Maybe I'll steal a bit of paper there. Lay that on. Put it over here where I'm sitting. A little bit of butter will help that go. And I got my beans here. It never ceases to amaze me all the different implements you can get at you know, survival stores and stuff like that. And just old-fashioned newspaper, wax paper. So I got beans here, right? And they're all I did was wrap them in wax paper, right? So see, they haven't leaked at all, right? Right? And I mean, you can just take them straight out of the can. I had to make lunch for my kids anyway, so I made beans and wieners, and I just put you know, some for me aside, right? And I measured enough to fit perfectly in this cup, which is perfectly fine for, it's basically a one-man pot, right? Fireproof ceramic cup, right? So that's what I'm going to cook everything, and I'm going to show you a neat way to use these to cook, because you wouldn't think this would be stable on a fire, and it isn't. But that shouldn't stop you. That's no excuse. All right, so I'll show you a little trick for cooking with this, but I'll put this aside for now, because we need a fire first. Going to put it somewhere that I don't step on it. That's the trick. Okay, now I'll get all this going. I mean, this is just a quickie fire. Nothing fancy. I don't have to do anything fancy because I got all these fantastic, you know, lighting materials. Right, your wax paper and everything. Right, newspaper, wax paper. Got some nice spruce out here. Come out of that on top of there. Get that going. I got some really nice dry sticks here. Just laying on top of that. This is like almost like a semi upside down fire. Not exactly, right? There's all kinds of different configurations for making fires, and sometimes it really matters what configuration you use. But if everything's nice and dry, like it is today, you can break a lot of rules. So it doesn't really matter that much, right? Throw that in there too. If I didn't have these ideal fire making materials, I would have gathered birch bark on my walk in. There's birch bark everywhere in the woods here, so you just use that. But you know, I knew I had the wax paper ready to go, so I knew I had an excellent sort of base fire starting material. And just from the look of things, I saw lots of dead trees with stuff like this, which is basically kindling. Right, so I knew there was lots of really good stuff in the woods today. Oh, and the smoke's going in just the right direction, away from me. Nice. Anyway, I knew it would be dead easy to make a fire today, just from the look of the woods when I was walking in. So there was no need to go overboard setting up the fire lay. And I'm not saying it's important what fire lay you use, but when conditions are good, it doesn't matter, right? Conditions are good. You know, think about the dead of summer, right? A spark can start a forest fire, right? Because conditions are good. All right. So anyway, now I got some heavier stuff. This is a dead hardwood tree. It was just hanging from a branch hanging off of a hardwood tree. All I'm trying to do here is get a really good heat going, and eventually I'll have a bed of coals that I can use to cook that those beans. That is plenty enough fire. All right, so now I got a really nice, really warm fire here. I might have made it a bit close to where I'm sitting. Anyway, I got some water here. First thing I did when I got to this spot is I drank half the water in this bottle. Then I filled it back up with I basically made like tiny snowballs and stuffed them in the bottle, right? So they all melted. And now I can hang this by the fire. Take the plastic cap off, of course, right? I got a fierce hot fire going right now. So I'll just, I've always got the wattled bottle with a little bit of just snaring wire, right? So let me just get a better angle on this camera here so you can see when I'm wider angle on the camera, right? So all I got to do is attach it to this stick, right? And position it over the fire like that, such that it can get some heat. All right, now I want to show you how I'm rigging up this little pot thing. All right, so this is really simple. Now I've always got some bank line, you know, because it takes up no room at all. You stick that in your pocket. I've always got some stuff somewhere. I got a little fanny pack that I always bring with me in the woods. I always got some there, and I usually have a coil of it stuffed in my pocket. So the idea is you have these two green sticks. This is maple. You use whatever you got. I've got it strung through the handle, right? And you know, because this has a this cup, it's like a tiny pot, has a lip, right? I could attach these using their tension to hold that tight, right? And all I got to do is just put a good knot at the other end. Now I can hold this together with my hand as well, my hands, right? But I mean, it doesn't make sense to hold it together with your hands if you can, you know, put a good knot on there, right? And this is just cheap bank line. I find if you keep, you know, pop it into a dollar store every once in a while, you can find it there really cheap. And when you do find it, buy like, you know, it's what I did anyway, buy like 10 rolls, and then you've got enough bank line to last you the rest of your life. All right, just using a jam knot here. It's a good knot because you can tie it with one hand. All right, so I got that nice and tight on there, right? All right, that's pretty good. Now I'm just gonna put this in my lap here and cut that off. Of course, I'll put the rest of that rope in my pocket right away. Otherwise it'll be missing, go missing, and never be seen again. All right, but I'm just gonna put a couple half hitches behind that just to hold that nice and snug. Right, but the tension in those green, this is maple, but the tension in those twigs should hold that, right? So I can put it over the fire. Now the trick is you can't have the knots too close to the fire, right? So that's why they're far away from the cup. You sort of position it, right, equidistant. And I'm just gonna take a stick and adjust the fire here so that it's not, I'm gonna adjust the fire so it's not as wide as the knots. So I'm just gonna move the coals around, right? So that there's very little risk of these burning, right? So let's do that now. I got way more fire than I could ever possibly need now, right? So I can, and I mean, I'm not here for the night, right? So I can kind of do things to my fire you wouldn't normally do if you were trying to sustain it. There should be enough coals and enough heat here. Whoops. To make this work. Okay, and those green sticks should have enough, you know, green in them that they don't catch fire, being so close to the fire, right? But I think I've got, I mean, this isn't the best wood because this is all just crap wood that I scrounged from around the woods here, right? But there should be enough heat left over in what I've used here to heat up these beans, right? Shouldn't take much. So, I mean, there's all kinds of gear you can bring into the woods for doing stuff. But I really do enjoy the process of keeping it really, really simple. All I usually bring into the woods with me is not a backpack. It's a little pack like this. This here part of it is just for camera gear because I'm shooting a YouTube channel here. Now I always stuff some, I always get a little one of these neck things in there, right? So I always have something stuffed in there. But the rest of the pack, right, you can get these on Amazon or eBay or whatever. It's just a thing for holding the water, a thing for holding my lunch, and a couple extra pockets for extra things. Right in here I got some rope. In this one I've got rope, matches, and a Bic lighter, an extra Bic lighter. In this one here I got a whistle and an emergency blanket, even though it's really not an emergency blanket, but anyway, what is called an emergency blanket, a big sheet of Mylar. I've never needed that, but I always have it. And here I got toilet paper, wax paper, a spare compass. I normally have a spare pocket knife in here as well, just in case I forget something. I always have a spare everything. I even got a little, it's like a little bicycle light from the dollar store, right? Just in case you needed light, right? It just clips on there, and I've got it for if I need it, just a little lithium thing. I don't know how long that would work for, but you know, it's just there if you need it, right? I always got to spare everything. I didn't need a spare pocket knife today because I have one in these particular pants. But normally I would have a spare pocket knife in there just as a backup. But I took that out for something. I needed it. I was in my garage and I needed a knife, and I just grabbed it. This thing was really handy, so I just pulled it out and I forgot to stick it back in. So normally there would be a spare compass, a spare knife, and one or two means of fire, and one or two kind of tinders, things to get fires going, like wax paper and things like that. I've always got stuff like that, always in a little kit, and just enough room for a little snack, a little lunch, maybe a couple extra handkerchiefs, that sort of thing, and a thing to put the water bottle in for boiling. A water bottle you can boil. That's all I bring with me, right? So that's why I'm always using these really sort of low-tech tricks, right? Because I don't like having a backpack on generally, because it makes me hot, right? Your back gets really hot. I always run really hot, so I don't like backpacks because they get hot. So I like just throwing this on. And these are great during fishing season as well, for the same reason, right? Well, those beans are really starting to heat up now. I think they'll be ready in a matter of seconds. They're starting to sizzle a bit. That's good. Another good advantage of this thing is that when I go to eat these, right, the tin will be so hot I can actually hang on to this wooden thing, and I won't, burn my hands. Just gonna check to see how warm this is. Oh, it's got a ways to go yet. One more advantage of using this trick is that you can set it on your lap, and it becomes like a little TV. This is a reference I'm dating myself with, but TV table. People remember what those are from the 70s and 80s. But yeah, you can just sit it on your lap and you basically got something you can eat on, like a little table, right? Because it'll stay in place, won't tip. Neat little trick, right? Little tip on cleanup here. Since I got this still rigged up in the little, pot cooking thing, just put a little bit of snow in there. Just a tiny amount of snow, right? And get that going over the fire. Right, now I can just use a couple of spruce boughs. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but use a couple spruce boughs in there. Nature's scouring pad. Cute spruce bough. Now, some fastidious, neat person was probably asking, how are you going to get that back in your pack without making a mess of things, right? Okay, so I've scoured that off. Now I can dump that water. Cut that. Pop that off, right? I left a little bit of newspaper. I mean, you could use anything, handkerchief, your shirt, whatever. or just shake it until it's dry. But I left a little bit of newspaper to use as a drying towel. And it works great. Right? Any sort of brown paper like that, right? Craft paper, tough paper. Right, and get that nice and clean enough to go back in the pack. Now, if you're worried about it not being clean enough, just you know, you should always have a handkerchief with you. And if you're worried about it not being clean enough, just take your handkerchief, wrap it in the handkerchief, stick it back in your pack, and then it won't get soot or dirt. Or now, if you really care about that sort of thing, that's how you do that, right? And then you just put it in the washing machine when you get home, or just let it stay. I mean, it's really, you're better off letting these things stay dark and stay dirty on the outside because they heat up faster, right? Black's always good, right, when you're trying to heat something up. So I just usually just leave them dirty, right? That's easier. Well, there she is in all her splendor and glory. My neighbor's old canoe. Flip her over and see what we got here. Oh my God. Oh, she's frozen in place. Oh my goodness. It's frozen in place. Unbelievable. Maybe I can pry it. Oh, she won't budge. Oh. If I force it, come on. If I force it too much, I could break it. Yeah. It's right in the ice. Darn it. Oh. I remember we had this up on a little thing to keep it off the ground. I remember making that. But maybe someone used it since then. I noticed somewhere along it there seemed to be something resembling what looked like a patch. Well, maybe I'm hallucinating. Yeah, this side of the gunnel is frozen right in. There's no way to get that out. I have to wait till everything thaws, till the ground thaws. Darn it. Unbelievable. Got all the way in here. That's the situation. Yeah, there's no way. Even if I was super strong or I used a big pry bar and broke it out. Especially ice like this, it's not just ice, it's like ice with sticks and twigs and things like that, so it's kind of extra strong. Almost like concrete with rebar in it, right? So, yeah, this ain't going anywhere. It's just a real shame. Because my main plan was to take this home, fix it up, get it good, and then take it to a whole different body of water. Basically, the place I went to in that video called a new honey hole, I was going to hide it there because I found a relatively easy way to get into the other side of that big long still water, but not the side where I think the fishing's the best. I don't know if there's any way in there. So the idea was to hide this along that big long the still water's maybe a kilometer long sort of thing. So it'd be nice to have a canoe there to fish it because there's trout all the way along and it's great for fly fishing. Nice spot. But this one ain't going anywhere. And you can see it's definitely worn. Yeah, it's definitely worn. Needs some fiberglass work. It needs some sanding, priming, fiberglass work, and that sort of thing. But I'm confident I can bring this back. So maybe this spring, when this thaws out, what I'll do is I'll come out with some temporary patching materials like duct tape and canoe it to where, you know, the other side of the lake I just crossed, and just leave it there and wait for the first snow and do all that the next year. And figure something else out for that wonderful honey hole. Maybe you find a cheap busted up canoe and fix it up. Every once in a while someone sells that sort of thing on Kijiji or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, and you can get an old garbage canoe and fix it up. That's kind of what I did with the other one, right? So anyway, time to hike out. Really not much more video to make today, just hiking out. So hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, enjoy the outdoors on the cheap. Thanks for watching. Epilogue. Well, I just finished my hike back across the lake, and I mean, even though it was you know, maybe -7 Celsius last night, I think the high for today was maybe +6. So we had a lot of wind, which you think would increase wind chill, but it was above 0. And the walk back, just in the time it took to make that fire and find the canoe and mess around, and, you know, so I was probably on the other side of this lake for, I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe something like that. But the entire surface of the ice on here, when it had changed, right? When I left, when I first left to cross the lake, it was sort of like hard semi-frozen slush is what I would call it. All the walk back, it was like slush. Not only that, but some of it, there was like a ½ an inch of sort of frozen slush, and then or like an inch of half frozen slush, and then like an inch or two of like really soft slush, and then 3-4 inches of hard ice underneath it. So even with the snowshoes, from time to time, I could feel the ice, that little thin layer at the top, little thin layer of sort of like slush ice, it would break. It's very unnerving being on a lake when you feel ice and hear ice breaking, right? I think it's instinctive. You don't like that feeling. But I came back the way I went. I checked it regularly all the way. Everywhere I checked, there was 4 or 5 inches of solid ice underneath the sort of crappy ice on top. So I just had to believe that hadn't changed fundamentally over that course of time, and just walk back and ignore the fact that I could feel something breaking, and just go quickly and have confidence that the snowshoes were spreading out my weight, right, and making things better, which I'm sure they were. So another great thing to bring along. As much as a pain as it is to carry them, and they're hard to walk with, you know, I mean, they're in deep snow, they're the only way to get around, but you know, you've got 2 or 3 pounds of something tied onto your feet. It does make walking more difficult, but I'm glad, very glad I had them for crossing this lake. But anyway, the whole canoe dream is dead. I gotta wait for everything to thaw, patch that up in some way, canoe it back over here, and wait for next winter. Or yeah, well, wait for the next good, you know, wait for the snow of next winter, assuming we get snow at some point. Anyway, epilogue over.